BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard. And that's okay if they want to play that game, but I can play that game too. So anybody that's in BRICS is getting a 10% charge.
Is that immediate, sir, or is
Yeah,
that
pretty soon.
if they engage in some behavior?
Well, if they're a member of BRICS, they're going to have to pay 10% tariff just for that one thing, and they won't be a member long. I thought BRICS was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar so that another country can take over and be the standard. And we're not going to lose the standard at any time. If you have a smart president, you will never lose the standard. If you have a stupid president like the last one, you would lose the standard. You wouldn't have the dollar as you. And if we lost the world standard dollar, that would be like losing a war, a major world war. We would not be the same country any longer. We're not going to let that happen. The dollar, you ever hear the expression, dollar is king? The dollar is king. We're going to keep it that way, okay? And I'm just saying, if people want to challenge it, they can, but they're going to have to pay a big price. And I don't think any of them are willing to pay that price.
No other country on planet Earth, and it's not even close, could pull this kind of operation off. And no other president has ever shown this kind of leadership, courage, and resolve. The most powerful combination the world has ever seen. As the president said, our adversaries remain on notice. America can project our will anywhere, anytime. The coordination, the stealth, the lethality, the precision, the very long arm of American justice, all on full display in the middle of the night. Nicolas Maduro had his chance, just like Iran had their chance, until they didn't and until he didn't. He effed around and he found out. President Trump is deadly serious about stopping the flow of gangs and violence to our country. Deadly serious about stopping the flow of drugs and poison to our people, deadly serious about getting back the oil that was stolen from us, and deadly serious about reestablishing American deterrence and dominance in the Western Hemisphere. This is about the safety, security, freedom, and prosperity of the American people. This is America first. This is peace through strength. And the United States War Department is proud to help deliver it.
All praise to our Heavenly Father, the Most High Yah, the great I am that I am, in the name of our Lord and Savior. Some of y'all call him Yahushua, some of y'all call him Yahushua, and some of y'all call him Jesus. And that is what it looks like when you get into pride. And we know from Scripture, pride comes before the fall. You see, the arrogance of you having someone up here, and that was Pete Hegseth, that last clip, where he's saying, America, we can project our will wherever we want to. You see what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? This guy, he effed around and he found out. That's straight pride, right? Then he sat up there and went so far as to say they stole our oil. Our oil in their country? Oh, so because you went over there and you helped them to get the oil out the ground, now it's yours. That's the mentality of a thief, dude. You see what I'm saying? Right? You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. But this is the mindset of these people, right? And you can hear it. You can see it in the pride. And it's only a matter of time before they get judged. So basically, as y'all know, go to this next clip. As y'all know, they did fly Nicolas Maduro into New York last night. You know what I'm saying? And now, as you can see, Trump tells you, and that clip was from a couple months ago, right? I took that clip, and put it in the death, or we seen the death of the dollar, a couple months ago, and y'all can see that video here. But basically, Trump told you, if the dollar comes off of being the world reserve currency and becomes the standard, loses its global standard, then it would be the equivalent of the United States losing a war, right? So he's basically telling you how important the petrodollar is. right? Because we know that it's not backed by anything. And we talked about that in the last video. If y'all didn't get to see that, you need to go back and watch the first part of, to this video. That, we talked about in yesterday's video. But anyway, he basically told it, back then. The United States has no plans whatsoever of letting other countries get out of using the fiat American dollar, right? Because that's you know what I mean? The United States really is not backed by anything except for the United States military at the end of the day, right? So you try to get out of it, as they arrogantly said, Maduro, you effed around, now you got to find out, right?
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is in custody in New York following his dramatic capture in a U.S. military operation in Caracas on Saturday. President Donald Trump says the people of Venezuela are now free of Maduro's dictatorship. Venezuela's vice president has demanded the U.S. send Maduro back, calling him the rightful president. Maduro and his wife, who was also captured, were brought to the Stewart Air Force Base several hours ago. The couple face federal charges of narco-terrorism and cocaine importation. Maduro was taken to a detention center escorted by drug enforcement officers. Now, with Maduro in custody, President Trump says the United States will govern Venezuela for now. His announcement has divided opinions.
All right, and y'all see, you notice how they parade the man, right? Got him all in handcuffs, you know what I mean, to show their power, right? But you notice they don't show the woman, right? Because what kind of look, what kind of image is that if you're marching a woman out and she's handcuffed and she's shackled and she's walking like that and you got a bunch of white men behind them? What kind of image would that be, right? So you notice they didn't even show her, they show him, because that's their way of saying, we're here, you're here. You mess with us, we put you back down in your place, right? So that's the image that they portray on TV, to subliminally, put that in your mind, right? But let's go back, because now you're going to start hearing them make this a political issue, right? You seen Hegseth where he said, oh, it's because of drugs and we did this to protect the American people, but he stole our oil. Really? How he's stealing your oil in his country, right?
All right, Patty, stand by for a second. We want to just run our viewers through some of the reaction to all of this from U.S. lawmakers. So first, we'll start with independent, the left-wing Democratic Alliance Senator Bernie Sanders. Listen.
Trump's attack on Venezuela will not make the United States and the world safer. Quite the contrary. This brazen violation of international law gives a green light to any country on earth that may wish to attack another nation to seize their resources or change their governments. This is the horrific logic of force that Putin used to justify his brutal attack on Ukraine. Let's make no mistake about it. This is rank imperialism. It recalls the darkest chapters of U.S. interventions in Latin America, which have left a terrible legacy. It will and should be condemned by the democratic world.
Okay, so that's one side of the political divide in America. On the other side, while most Republicans are backing Trump, some are coming out against the capture of Maduro. So this is what Trump ally turned critic, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote on X. She wrote in part, Mexican cartels are primarily and overwhelmingly responsible for killing Americans with deadly drugs. If U.S. military action and a regime change in Venezuela was really about saving American lives from deadly drugs, then why hasn't the Trump administration taken action against Mexican cartels? And Republican Congressman Thomas Massie posted on X, he wrote in part, AG, again referring to the Attorney General Pam Bondi and others, legally characterized attack in Venezuela as arrest with military support. Meanwhile, Trump announces he's taken over the country and will run it until he finds someone suitable to replace him. So, Patty, back to you now. So, how much of a problem is this politically for Trump, given that a big chunk of his MAGA base is against all of these, as you point out, foreign military interventions?
All right. So now, as y'all can see, that's Al Jazeera that I took that clip from. Now, you think Al Jazeera, what do you think? you think, oh, that's got to be an Arab or Islamic thing, right? But the person talking and this person who's getting ready to interview, do they look Arab to you? You see? So you see who's always in control of the media. But now when you get Bernie Sanders up here and you see how they're making this a political issue, right? Bernie Sanders, oh, this Trump, he went in here and he's imperialism and he's doing all these things. When the truth of the matter is, you're Jewish, Bernie Sanders, and you know good and well about the petrodollar, and you know good and well, you know what I'm saying, what Trump is doing, trying to keep that petrodollar afloat. You know what's happening, but you're not going to say it because you know who really prints up that dollar. And you know who's really running, you know what I'm saying, the IMF, the World Bank, and, you know, the Federal Reserve. You know what's going on, but you're going to try to make Americans feel like, oh, you know, I'm the old Jewish guy who's truthful about everything and I'm whatever. No, you're a globalist too. You see what I'm saying? Because eventually, you know, when it's time, y'all are going to destroy the American dollar, right? You're going to do them, and y'all going to see about fiat currencies and how they can devalue your currency through hyperinflation and destroy your economy, right? And sooner or later, when they get tired of America, and if they can't control America, they will devalue your currency, which they're in the process of doing now, and they will leave you in the utter dark. You see what I'm saying? So the bottom line is, you know, you can say that, but y'all want the Americans to think, oh, Trump is the end all be all to all of this, right? So then when you get the right candidate, you see what I'm saying? They're already positioning people. Because if this stuff down in Venezuela doesn't go to plan, they got to have the next puppet in line to step up and then say, well, I wasn't with Trump. I stood against Trump. I left Trump. You know what I'm saying? And I'm the one that's standing here. And so in the debates, you know what I mean, 3 or 4 years from now, Marjorie Taylor Greene and that other Yahoo that you've seen up there talking about Trump is going to go in here and whatever, they'll be the ones that come in here and run anti-Trump. You see what I'm saying? They'll be the Republicans that'll run for president and they'll be the anti-Trump. Well, use this, and then they'll be standing on the stage, right? So they're already positioning people to play this game with the American people. You see, this is why when you understand these politics, they don't never tell you the real issue. Marjorie Taylor Greene, what is it? Oh, there are Mexican cartels down there. You know what I'm saying? Why ain't he going after them? Well, why ain't you talking about how, you know what I'm saying? This is about keeping the petrodollar afloat. Why ain't you telling what it really is? Why ain't you telling about these Jewish people who are handling Trump, you know what I'm saying? And the state of Israel and all of these people, how they're actually going down there to make sure that they can keep the dollar propped up. Why ain't you telling all that? You see what I'm saying? See, all of these things that these people have been doing, it's all a dog and pony show. That's all it is, right? But now let's go to the next clip.
The Republican leadership, the prominent Dems, the rest of the caucus is what's going to matter here, and they will react in large part how the base reacts. Just to put this in perspective, Donald Trump and his presidency is right now, if you look at polls, the lowest approval rating he has ever had, whether it was his first term, his second term. He is facing complaints from his voters over farmers being hurt by the tariffs. The economy is weak. The job market's weak. Healthcare has increased. Everything is much more. There's an affordability crisis in this country when it comes to the cost of groceries, the cost of housing. So he is a very deeply unpopular president. The only thing that's been keeping him propped up is that core Republican base. He still has approval with people who label themselves as Republicans. So the politicians in this country are going to be looking to see how those people react. If they see a growing split, that could impact how they react. Obviously, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tom Massey, Representative Tom Massey, they've been critics of Donald Trump. But it also matters because Venezuela gets a vote here. The rest of the world gets a vote here. This is now owned by President Donald Trump. He has not made it clear exactly how he intends to run the country. Putting troops in Venezuela would be hugely unpopular. So it really depends on how the American people react, how the world reacts, and what happens next.
So you see, that's politics, right? You notice Obama didn't do what he did into Libya until his second term. Trump didn't do what he done to Venezuela until his second term. And both of them have lost a whole lot of support, right, during their second term. So what happened after Obama, whatever? It didn't go according to plan. Here comes Trump, step on here. Oh, Obama did this, the Democrats did this, whatever. What do you think is going to happen when Trump get ready to get out? right? Pete Buttigieg or one of these people will come up and then they'll say, oh, Trump went in and he went down to Venezuela and he did all this, and this is the reason why the American economy continues to fall, whatever, and we done got caught up in a whole nother war and blah, 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 right? So see, this is what is happening, you know what I'm saying, in this country right now. The stage is being set that, okay, you done went down here and done this. If it's good, then people from Trump's administration can run and be your next president. If it's bad, then they already got their people in place, you know what I'm saying, to to run against it and speak against this and get everybody to support them. And this is how they get people to continue playing this political game and buying into this political game, right? But next I want to show y'all, you know what I'm saying, about why the United States needs oil. Now, because the United States produces its own oil, right? And, you know what I'm saying, Venezuela happens to be one of the largest oil producing countries in the world. Why are they so poor, right? So that's what the rest of this video, we're going to try to break this down so that y'all get a total understanding about, you know what I'm saying, energy and world resources and how these people use your currency, you know what I'm saying, to basically control you, okay? Let's go to the next video.
Now, Donald Trump is insisting that the main reason he's interested in Venezuela, the main reason the US is kind of looking at tankers off the coast of Venezuela comes back to drugs, the trade, the smuggling of illegal drugs out of Venezuela. But what if it's not just that? Maybe there's something else going on. What if it's partly about oil? Now, on the surface, you might be thinking, why does America even need Venezuelan oil? And I can kind of understand your point, because if you look at just total oil production, look, this is up until 2005, the US was there, Venezuela was there, Saudi Arabia was there. But as you probably know, since then, everything has changed. Look, American output has gone through the roof, way above Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela has gone basically to the floor. And that's kind of post-Chavez, Maduro. They're one of the minnows now, and I think 21st biggest producer in the world. So again, that question, why should America care? Well, in the US, that big rise is largely down to this. It's down to the shale revolution. So you've got fracking all around the US producing extraordinary amounts of crude oil.
All right, so the next thing that I want y'all to see is the video clip that I just showed you comes from here, okay? And you see the real reason Venezuela matters, why Trump cares about oil. Now, mind you, they shot this, you know what I'm saying, 3 weeks ago, okay? I just wanted y'all to see that. And it comes from Sky News, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, the point that he just made that I want to make sure that y'all see is America is producing its own amount of oil. So why would they need, Venezuela? Venezuela's not even producing that much oil, even though Venezuela has the largest amounts of oil in the world, right? But you got to get that oil out the ground, okay? And there's different types of oil, which he's getting ready to explain to you now. So check it out.
And here's where we get to the interesting bit. Because when you're thinking about crude oil, maybe you're just thinking about, well, look, barrels of oil. It's all the same, isn't it? Well, actually, no. So if you kind of look at crude oil, there are various different types of crude in different parts of the world. There's actually kind of various different ways you can categorize it. But one way you can look at it is look at the kind of density. So you're basically looking at how thick that crude is. And when I say thick, I mean literally how thick. This is showing you global production broken down by the density of that oil. And so you've got the kind of medium stuff. And this is probably, if you've got kind of image in your mind of what crude oil looks like, it's a bit like this, it's kind of black, but it's not too viscous, it flows around. But there's other stuff as well. So this is light crude. And it kind of almost looks like a smoothie, doesn't it? And that's the same stuff. This is still crude oil, but down to the kind of geological and the biological conditions in the ground when it was being formed, hundreds of millions of years ago, it comes out looking a bit different. And so that's light. You've also got heavy stuff. And it's kind of relatively small in global production, but this is gloopy, super viscous stuff. Heavy oil, so heavy, medium, light. Remember that. And remember also, the key thing here is, you get it out of the ground, it may look like that, but ultimately, you still need it to go into, someone's car, or indeed, be turned into chemicals. Basically, you need to process it. And that processing That happens in places like this, in refineries. And there are refineries all over the world, of course. There are refineries all over the US as well. There's kind of more than 100 of them. And if we kind of look at where those refineries are, well, so there's some in California. So the history in America, actually, historically, a lot of the early Californian oil, that was the heavy, gloopy stuff. And if you look at kind of some of the refineries in America, so here are some of the refineries. There's one in LA there. These are the 10 biggest. You've got some up here around kind of towards Canada. We'll kind of come to that in a second. But a lot of them are down there, kind of Texas, Louisiana, on the coast. And here's the critical thing. These refineries are primarily set up for heavy oil, for taking that gloopy stuff and turning it into gasoline and all of the other different products. But here's where things get interesting. And remember that chart I showed you a moment ago, the one which showed kind of shale oil and how it kind of went through the roof? The oil that's generally produced with shale oil, the fracking oil, that comes out of the ground mostly in the light form. So it's the smoothie. It's sometimes actually even clear. It comes out of the ground clear rather than black. And that's the majority of American production right now. Shale oil tends to be light stuff. And actually that's kind of going back 10 years. Look at where we are now. Look at those bars. In the last few years, the amount of light oil being produced in the US has gone up and up and up, and the amount of kind of heavy stuff has gone down. But back to those refineries. They need to be fed. If America's going to have gasoline, it needs to feed those refineries with heavy oil.
Aha! So now we see, not only is it about them going down there to protect the petrodollar, right? They're also going down there because they need that heavier oil, right, for the American refineries, right? America produces the lighter type of oil, you know what I'm saying, instead of the heavier type of oil. Now, I want y'all to keep that in mind because later on, y'all going to see a clip later on where Trump is going to basically tell a bold-faced lie. You know what I'm saying? Like that Venezuelan oil ain't all that good or whatever, right? When they know they need it, okay? Let's go back to the clip.
So if you look at the kind of imports coming into America, in recent years, even though America is producing so much oil, more oil than it's ever produced before, it still needs to suck in loads of oil from overseas. And the type of oil we're talking about, it used to be, it's mostly heavy crude. It used to be only 12%. So only 12% of imports were heavy, gloopy crude. Now, it's about 70%. So 70% of the oil coming into America, which it needs to basically keep its economy going, is heavy crude. And where does heavy crude come from? Well, here are some of the big countries where you find most of it. It's Canada and Venezuela. There's one other I'll come to in a second, which we'll come back to. But it's Canada and it's Venezuela where you get most of this heavy crude oil, which is why, about to think about where those refineries are, they're mostly set up kind of, you've got some in the north there to get the heavy oil coming out of Canada, and you've got some around the kind of Louisiana and elsewhere and Texas to get that heavy oil that comes in from Venezuela. That was kind of the way they were set up. And it's really expensive to rebuild these things. You can't just chuck out a refinery very easily overnight. Some came from Mexico and the Gulf of Mexico as well, and that was pretty heavy too. So that's the picture in America. And the upshot is, even though America is producing more and more oil, the imports, this is showing you imports of oil into America, are still really high. And if you break down those imports by the country that stuff is coming from, well, there's Venezuela, and it used to be a decent slug, actually more coming from Venezuela just about than from Canada, just at the turn of the millennium. But now look at what's happened since. Right now, Canada has gone from 15% of all of the US imports of oil to 61%. 61%, and Venezuela is basically next to nothing. But here's what's tantalizing, and here's the reason I think that a lot of people are looking towards Venezuela and thinking, well, there's more to this than just drugs. Look at total oil reserves around the world. The higher these bars are, the more oil there is in the ground, so that hasn't yet been taken out of the ground. So there you've got Saudi, Iran, Iraq, all of the usual suspects. But the biggest of all, and this is according to various different sources, the biggest of all is Venezuela. And what's that oil? It's the heavy, tarry stuff that you might well want to put into those American refineries. And there is really only one other place in the world that has a kind of serious amount of heavy oil other than Canada and Venezuela. And lo and behold, guess where that is? It's Russia. All of which is to say, you know, it matters what kind of oil America needs. It's worth just delving into these kind of nuances because that helps you understand a little bit more about the backstory of geopolitics.
All right, so as y'all can see, right? Who has the most oil in the ground? And as you can see, all of your major players are where you hear in the news of all of these overthrow, regime change, bad people, all of this, right? Libya, remember? That's when Muammar Gaddafi had all that oil. They overthrew him. The USA, right? We know the United States is always involved in everything. Russia, right? Then we get to Kuwait, okay? Remember with Saddam Hussein and Kuwait? United Arab Emirates. Remember I told y'all about OPEC, how all of them were working together, even with Saudi Arabia? Then you got Canada, you see? Right? So United States works with Canada, and you see Canada has quite a bit, right? But then here we go, Iraq. Then we got Iran, right? Then you got Saudi Arabia. And who's this other major of all of them? Who has the most oil in the ground? Venezuela. So now, if the United States, where's the US? If the United States gets a hold of Venezuelan oil, right? They already allied with Canada, right? You see what I'm saying? They've already went in and overthrew Libya, and they overthrew Iraq. So now, and we also know they're working with Saudi Arabia for the petrodollar. Now look at all the people, right, who basically are left out of this thing. You got Iran, Russia, you know what I'm saying? The United Arab Emirates, even though they're kind of still playing both sides of the fence. And Kuwait, we know that they were with America because America went and delivered them from Iraq. You see what I'm saying? So you see how basically they're fighting to make sure that all of these people stay in line with the petrodollar, okay? But who do you not see in any of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, top 10 countries? You don't see not one country from Europe, because Europe is heavily dependent on imports for their power, okay?
Venezuela had a major problem. They had a massive oil field in its interior, but the oil had a thick, tar-like consistency that just wasn't economically viable. But then the price of crude suddenly went up and they started exporting this oil primarily to the United States.
When I left, Venezuela was ready to collapse. We would have taken it over. We would have gotten all that oil. It would have been right next door. But now we're buying oil from Venezuela, so we're making a dictator very rich.
The United States happened to have built much of its refining infrastructure around processing this type of heavy oil. These refineries are extremely expensive to build, but the problem was that domestically produced oil had become much lighter. Their solution was to import heavy oil, which today makes up over 2/3 of all oil imports. Without this, many of the largest US refineries would become much less competitive.
No me ha colocado como presidente el gobierno de los Estados Unidos.
But it wasn't a match made in heaven.
Que no estoy subordinado a ningún gobierno extranjero imperialista.
Venezuela is one of the few countries that have this type of oil in abundance. But they messed up. They initially saw their economic output increase more than 5-fold, but then they so badly mismanaged their oil money that the entire system collapsed like a house of cards. This is how Venezuela screwed up with hindsight. So in this video, we're going to of course work towards that escalation with the United States, and we're going to place that into broader strategic perspective.
All right. So the video that you just saw is from Hindsight. This is a channel on YouTube. You can go there and watch this whole video, right? But as you can see, this video actually, you know what I mean? I didn't put it in this clip, but it's from 2 weeks ago. And you hear what they said, why the U.S. is now invading Venezuela, right? And you see it's pointing to that great big oil field that they have there. And it says this oil is different. And this is why, because it's that heavier, thicker oil that they need for the American refineries so they can produce things like gasoline for everybody's car. So if you don't think that none of this stuff is important to you, you know what I'm saying? You're wrong. That's why you need to understand geopolitics and understand how this world truly operates. That's why the Father told us, be wise as serpents, but harmless as doves.
A big part of this story is oil, but there are other pieces of the puzzle that you must understand. It's crucial to understand the strategic interests from countries like Iran, China, and Russia. And we must look at the facts on the ground. There are nearly 30 million people who live in Venezuela, and another 9 million people have left the country.
So we'll get to that perspective of the United States, but first we must understand some internal developments. And
all right. So notice, who is the three people that you see Maduro shaking hands with? China. Now remember in the last video I told you China doesn't have oil reserves of its own, right? They got to do a lot of important, but they get a lot of stuff from Russia. You know what I mean? And it was a major purchaser with Venezuela, trying to prop Venezuela up. You know what I'm saying? But you got China, Russia, and Iran. He was with there shaking hands with all three of them. But now the United States then came down here and yanked him up. What do you think he gonna do? 9 times out of 10, he gonna cut some type of deal, right? Or else he gonna rot over here in American prisons, right? But something's going on, right? But anyway, let's go back, you know what I'm saying, to the video clips.
In the 1920s, Venezuela had a small population and an economy built on agriculture. But that changed almost overnight. Researchers were searching for oil near this tidal lake, Lake Maracaibo, and one night they struck big. The Barroso II well blew out and discovered a massive oil field beneath. This was Venezuela's spectacular entry into the global oil age. Oil didn't just become an industry, it became the foundation of the state. Production took off almost immediately, but in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, there was an almost 1,000% increase. This led government budgets to soar, cities to expand, and Venezuela suddenly had more money than it knew how to spend. Let's fast forward to the 1970s, when the world changed.
It is an all-out war. The surprise attacks came early this morning by Syria and Egypt.
First, during the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, Arab oil exporters imposed an oil embargo. And later, during the Iranian Revolution, which removed millions of barrels of oil per day from global markets. As a result of these political shocks, oil prices surged and became unstable. Venezuela now had to make a decision. They could increase their exports and make a lot of money quickly, or they could follow the Arab strategy. And they chose the latter. They lowered their production so that they could produce less while earning more per barrel. Venezuela's oil fields were maturing, and they had to think about the future. After the 1970s, oil prices continued to fluctuate, but they got lucky. They discovered a vast reserve of oil in Venezuela's mainland, but it was a very thick oil that was not yet commercially viable. This could have been a wake-up call for Venezuela. They had built their entire economy on oil, and these price fluctuations directly affected the government's budget. An over-reliance on oil makes other exports less competitive, and Venezuela was increasing their dependence on this one single resource.
so how they managed their country is that whenever oil prices went down, they would just wait for them to go up again. And if this took too long, they would just print more money. And
all right, so this is where you see it starts ticking me off, because they always act like other countries are so dumb and they just start doing, things that the United States doesn't do, or any other of these European countries, just printing up money, right? First of all, let's talk about their currency. The Bolivar is the official currency of Venezuela, named after the hero of South American independence, Simón Bolívar. It was introduced by President Guzmán Blanco via the monetary reform of 1879, before which the Venezolano was circulating. Due to its decades-long reliance on silver and gold standards, right? So it used to be your money is dependent on how much silver and gold you are. You can't just print it up, and not have anything to back it, right? But you see what it says, due to its decades-long reliance on silver and gold standards, and then on a peg to the United States dollar. So they went from gold and silver, being backed by gold and silver, to being backed, with the United States dollar. It was pegged to the United States dollar. That's what their value was based off of. It was long considered among the most stable currencies. since 1983. That's around the time where he told you about the Iranian Revolution, when they start, getting rid of the United States, and then Iran starts trying to take over their country and take over their natural oil resources and everything else. But since 1983, the currency has experienced a prolonged period of high inflation, okay? Losing value almost 500-fold against the US dollar in the process. All right, so now let's drop down to Wikipedia where it says history, and then it talks about the Bolivar, and you're going to get more of what actually happened. The Bolivar is named after the hero of South American independence, Simón Bolívar. The Bolivar was introduced by President Guzmán Blanco, who around 100 years after Simón Bolívar's birth undertook various projects to honor his contribution to Venezuelan history. The coin appeared in the monetary law of 1879, replacing the short-lived Venezolano at a rate of 5 bolívares to 1 venezolano. Initially, the bolivar was defined on the silver standard. Okay, so initially you had to have some silver to back it, equal to 4.5 grams fine silver, following the principles of the Latin monetary union. The monetary law of 1887 made the gold bolivar unlimited legal tender, and the gold standard came into full operation in 1910. So they went from silver, they went to gold, right? This got to be backed by gold. Venezuela went off gold in 1930. And remember, I told you the United States dollar went off the gold standard in 1971, 73, somewhere around there. Venezuela went off the gold standard in 1930. And in 1934, the Bolivar exchange rate was fixed in terms of the US dollar. So that's when they pegged it to the dollar. At a rate of BS, the Bolivars is 3.914 equal to $1. Okay? So now, you got to basically have 4 Bolivars for $1. Revalued to 3.18 in $1 US in 1937. So then it basically went down to about 3 for 1. Okay? A rate which lasted until 1941. Until the 18th of February, 1983, the Bolivar has been the region's most stable and internationally accepted currency. It then fell prey to high devaluation, right? So now this is when somebody starts making them devalue their currency, right? Exchange controls were imposed on February 5th, 2003 to limit capital flight. The rate was pegged to the US dollar at a fixed exchange rate. So by 2003, 20 years later, of Bolivar's 1,600 to the dollar, right? So you can see that utterly destroyed their currency. So what does that mean? It's just like now, we got a dollar bill. A dollar bill don't hardly get you anything. When I was a child, you could go in here and take a dollar bill and get you a bag of potato chips, a candy bar, and a 12-ounce can of soda, right? But now, you can't get a bag of potato chips. You can't get one candy bar, and you can't get one soda with that same dollar bill, right? That's how much it's devalued, right? So now you need more 20s, you're going to need more 50s, and eventually you're going to need more hundreds, and eventually, they're going to have to pick bigger, values, because your value of your dollar is not the same, right? And that's what happened to the people in Venezuela.
El siglo que viene para nosotros es el siglo de la esperanza.
Introducing Hugo Chavez.
El problema es económico.
He came to power on the promise to lift millions of Venezuelans out of poverty, and he did expand education, healthcare, and food programs, but not by building a diversified economy. Instead, he poured the country's booming oil incomes into massive social spending, and he got lucky from the start. He came to power in 1999, and right thereafter, global oil prices rose to a record of nearly $100 per barrel. So, what did he do? Oil production, when he came to power, was already at a peak high, and he continued riding that wave. Billions of oil dollars went into social missions, subsidies, and public employment, and millions of Venezuelans saw their lives actually improve.
Arreglémoslo nosotros mismos, colombianos, venezolanos, ecuatorianos, sentados en paz y como hermanos que lo somos.
Chavez became immensely popular.
La razón de mayor peso de que Estados Unidos quiera poner aquí un gobierno subordinado a él, al imperio, como lo tuvieron durante mucho tiempo, es el petróleo venezolano.
The United States has a dark past in Latin America and meddled with many countries' governments. They were the imperialists, they were the aggressor, and supporters of Chavez saw him as the man who was finally standing up against this big imperial power from the north.
Quiere imponernos su modelo de explotación y de saqueo y su hegemonía a punta de guerras.
But the entire system worked because the price of oil was high. This specced the government's coffers, and this was invested in programs that had very quick results. But it only worsened the underlying problem, and that's when Maduro came to power.
So as many as y'all know, Hugo Chavez, right? He used to stay on their heads, right? I used to watch all of that because during 9/11, he went and spoke against the United States, you know what I'm saying, going over there in Afghanistan and all that type of stuff, and then he even went on record saying that, buildings don't fall like that, and so Chavez used to talk trash, right? And then, he ended up getting sick, whatever. And that's when, he got sick and he got cancer, right? Basically. And he ended up, passing away in like 2012 or something like that. But this is when Maduro gets into power. Okay. So the one thing that you just have to understand what Chavez, is quoted as saying, you've seen what he said. The United States was always coming down there meddling in their government. And the reason why they meddled in their government was because of their oil, right? They always wanted to control that. You know what I'm saying? A big lot of oil down there. One of the largest oil fields in the world, right?
Chosen by Hugo Chavez as his successor, Nicolas Maduro has followed his mentor into power.
Nicolas Maduro was a close ally of Chavez. He served as his foreign minister and vice president, and in the early days, he was a bus driver. He was a man of the people who would continue the path of Chavez, but that's when oil prices fell hard. The price of a barrel of crude fell from $92 to $49 in a single year. And that's when we saw the mess that Venezuela had built.
The world hasn't seen such a drop in crude oil prices for a long time.
The tumbling oil prices had a catastrophic effect in Venezuela.
Maduro could have done the right thing in that moment. He had just come to power and he could have admitted that his government had made mistakes, that the system was all corrupt, and that they now must make the painful decision to stop spending money and to diversify the economy. But he did none of these things.
I mentioned printing money earlier, and that was classic Venezuelan economic policy.
Whenever the price of oil went down and they needed cash, they would just print some more.
Now, inflation in Venezuela is expected to reach 1,000,000%.
And it looks like the economic crisis there is about to get even worse.
Inflation became so extreme that money became worthless. While Chavez oversaw the extremely fast growth of the Venezuelan economy, Maduro oversaw how the entire system collapsed like a house of cards. There were shortages of food and medicine, supermarket shelves were empty, and corruption soared.
So you see, that's the thing about it. And you think about it. When gas prices start ballooning up for us here, people was ticked off about it. But, our economy wasn't necessarily based off of oil. So we're paying these high prices for oil. And we wonder what the heck is going on. But for those people over there in Venezuela, their economy is based off of their oil, right? So now all of a sudden, the oil was going good. Okay, there's more money coming in because they can sell their oil at a higher price. But should the oil, start falling, then guess what's going to happen? You're not going to get as much back for selling your oil, right? And it dropped halfway from 90 to 40 something. So the bottom line is, now what are you going to do? You're not going to just keep sucking up more oil and selling more oil to make up for the difference. Or you can try to hold on to your oil, and not sell it for super cheap, and wait for the prices to go back up, because then, you can, make money back. So in the meantime, what they're doing is printing up all this other money that, they really don't have. That's where this fiat currency comes in. You just go back printing up money and all this type of stuff, and the people don't even know what's going on, So when it's the same thing here, America does the exact same thing, so that's why when they get on here and they start talking about, they mismanage their economy and this, whatever, America do the exact same thing. You know what I mean? The dollar is the exact same thing, like what was it with the Bolivar? It's the exact same thing, right? And so when they keep printing up all this money, eventually, if they were to collapse it, it's the exact same thing happened in Germany, right? Anybody that gets against them, they will collapse your currency, tell you your currency is not worth anything, and then you're stuck, right? Prices are going to go up. You ain't got the money. The people in the country don't have the money to get it. And then guess what's going to happen? political turmoil, right? So that's how they make people, and they're doing the exact same thing with Iran right now. You see what I'm saying? The fact that they got all those protests in Iran is because their currency has fallen. So they attack your currency, they get the people stirred up, so the people will want a revolution to overthrow the people that's in power, right? And then they'll go in here and fund somebody, you know what I mean, and run them to run against whoever's in power. And that's how they overthrow through democratically, run elections. However, most of the time, they ain't Democrat at all. Do you know what I mean? They just give you a little puppet because they want to get rid of the person that don't want to bow down to the empire, right? So let's go back to the clip.
But the strength of a democracy is that when those in power are majorly screwing up, they can be removed through elections.
In Venezuela's elections, the opposition is celebrating a landslide victory over the ruling Socialist Party.
After winning 99 of the 167 seats in parliamentary elections.
In 2015, the opposition won the parliamentary elections in a landslide, gaining a 2/3 supermajority. But Maduro wasn't letting go. He just created a parallel new assembly, after which tens of thousands of people took to the streets to protest. Maduro repressed the unrest violently.
Anti-government protests continue in Venezuela.
Hundreds of people have been injured and more than 2,000 arrested.
In 2018, there were presidential elections, which were widely regarded as rigged. Maduro officially won, but it led to more mass protests in the streets, and Venezuela's outlook was getting worse and worse. The country was so brutally mismanaged, there were such harrowing shortages, and the country was so corrupt and so unsafe that millions of Venezuelans felt forced to leave the country. In 2018, in a single year, nearly 1.4 million people left. This was by far the largest refugee outflow ever recorded in Latin America, and that's when something changed.
The government accepted its defeat against the dollar and has allowed it to emerge from the grassroots level.
Prices are all in US dollars.
The national currency had become completely worthless, so people shifted to dollars.
So now y'all see, right? You see how even though this guy is presenting the information, but you see how it was and they shifted to dollars. First of all, let's go back. Let's rewind. Think about it. If you ain't got money to go out here and buy food, where you get money to go leave the country? Where you get that money from, right? So who's giving you money to leave the country and all this type of stuff if y'all don't have money for food and all that? Millions of people leave, you see? Or, is somebody down there tinkering around in your country that's causing people, to revolt against you? And then, is somebody out there throwing rocks and showing, think about it. If I want a revolution, even in America, you go show a bunch of people, get 50 people, pay 50 people. They go out there and start throwing rocks down there in the middle of downtown. You know what I'm saying? Oh, we're out here protesting, whatever. Show it on the news. Guess what's going to happen? That 50 is going to turn to 100. That 100 will turn to 150. That 150 will turn to 300, right? Next thing you know, you got people out here wanting to throw rocks, and then you put in the bricks. Remember, there's footage where they've done that before, right? Put bricks out there in your city, put stuff out there for you to go throwing stuff, right? That's why you have to understand all these things. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all. If you ever see, things going south, especially with the dollar, it's purchasing power, then they tell you, oh, it's a revolt and people are out here and they want to protest. You go out there trying to overthrow the government and doing all that type of stuff. You ain't doing nothing but putting yourself in harm's way, because the bottom line is it's all staged, right? But this is what they were doing, trying to overthrow them, because you got rulers who was trying to basically kick America out and keep the oil and their proceeds for themselves. And then Maduro is going over here talking with Putin, with the Iranians, and with Xi Jinping of China, right? So they had a problem. And so to think that they ain't got nothing to do with it, yeah, right. Come on. Now all of a sudden their currency is whatever, but now all of a sudden they got dollars. Okay.
Most families could only survive through remittances or from money from abroad, and a black market was emerging that was now based on the US dollar. This helped the crisis to stabilize, but at an extremely low point. Venezuela is in deep trouble. They have by far the lowest minimum wage in Latin America at just $3 per month. which is cruel, because they still have the largest proven oil reserves of any country in the entire world. They have more oil than Russia and the United States combined. But their oil rigs are poorly maintained, and they struggle finding the right engineers. But they're still making big money off this resource, and it might be a rhetorical question, but where do you think these revenues are going?
So is it making sense to you now? How do you as a country have the largest oil reserve in your country and your people, you see, are getting the lowest minimum wage in the world, right? How does that happen? Except somebody is waging war on you from the outside, right? So the bottom line is they can sit here and play all these games they want to, and then you say, well, they got the oil, but they couldn't get it out the oil, so our people, we helped them, whatever. Listen, if you come into my country, I hire you to come in here and do that. You know what I'm saying? Now, I can give you a percentage of whatever comes back, but you don't get to keep the majority of it. You know what I'm saying? This is my oil. It's in my land. But you see, that's the thing. In order to get it out of the ground, right? And then if they go dealing, and y'all going to see it here in a minute, they go dealing with Iran and dealing with China and dealing with Russia, how to get this out of the ground? Oh, no. Nah. Now, we not letting you do that. Our people are going to go down there and help you get this out of the ground. And then that's going to be our oil because we helped you get it out of the ground, right? That's the mind of a thief. You know what I'm saying? If you find somebody put a treasure in my backyard, it's in my backyard, it's mine, right? Now, I go to get you and pay you to help me to go get it out of there. That don't mean just because you help me get it out of my backyard that you get to take all of it and give me a couple shekels. that dog don't hunt, right? And that's what they do.
Well, Venezuela is also the third most corrupt country in the world after South Sudan and Somalia. Maduro and the people closest to him are enriching themselves. Senior military officers and political insiders are accused to facilitate the illegal drug trade through their territory. The large flow of migrants, the flow of illicit drugs, directly links the crisis in Venezuela to the United States. So let's get to the elephant in the room.
You're making a dictator very rich. Can you believe this? Nobody can believe it.
The United States has a complicated relationship with Venezuela.
Their oil is garbage. It's horrible. The worst you can get. Tar. It's like tar.
Didn't I tell y'all? Caught in a bold-faced lie, right? It's like tar. You need that tar. You know what I'm saying? For your refineries. And you said, the man put it in the clip. We're making a dictator rich. Well, if you're making him rich through oil, what does he need to sell drugs for? Right? if the country's so corrupt, right? But y'all don't like it that he's making you pay for it. Y'all want to be able to and go in there and get it for free. You know what I'm saying? You just go get it out of there. You invest your money to go get it out of there. Then after that, they supposed to render it to Caesar, right? So that's what y'all want to do, right? But y'all don't want to take a portion of it. Y'all don't want to get your little percentage out of it, right? Y'all want to give them the little percentage. You keep the majority percentage. You know what I'm saying? And then when they don't do it, they don't know how to manage their economy. They're just a bunch of heathen drug traders. You know what I'm saying? That's all they do. You know, they're making their money through selling illicit drugs and illegal drugs in our country with their bad oil. It's like tar. We don't need it. You do need it, you liar.
So one of the narratives that I see a lot in the media and that is just plain false is that it was the United States that was responsible for this mess in Venezuela. After the 2015 elections, the US imposed sanctions, but this was still mostly symbolic. But after the rigged presidential elections, which led to violent crackdowns and massive refugee flows, US sanctions became much more severe. Half of Venezuela's exports are shipped to the United States, making it by far their biggest trade partner. The thick, tar-like oil that Venezuela produces is mostly refined in the United States, which, due to sanctions, was now off-limits. And Maduro needed these oil incomes to manage the growing unrest at home. The human toll was deepening. Blackouts were common. Unofficial estimates put the number of daily blackouts at 200. Hospitals only functioned because of volunteers, and ironically, there were massive shortages of fuel. To manage the country under the extra pressure from sanctions,
Maduro started searching for other allies.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, in a phone call with Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro, expressed solidarity with the Venezuelan people.
Beijing has been vocal in supporting the government of President Maduro.
Iran provided technical know-how for extracting and refining oil. China became Venezuela's key financial partner and provided funding. And Russia provided the Venezuelan army with weapons and intelligence. These events led the US to look at Venezuela through a broader geopolitical lens.
All right, so now, as y'all see, you the leader of your country. Your power is getting turned off. The people are getting ticked off and mad at you, you know what I mean? Because the prices, you know what I mean, of food is going astronomical high. You know what I mean? You go and say, okay, these people are trying to block me and trying to keep me from being able to do anything, right? So then you go turn to their enemies, their adversaries, right? Bottom line is I'm going to turn to Putin, I'm going to turn to Xi Jinping, and I'm going to turn to the Iranian president, right? And now guess what happens? Middle of the night, you get a raid and they snatch you up and then got you marched off of a plane going into New York City, right? Now y'all see, you know, this is all a great big old stage, you know, dog and pony show and all this type stuff, right? This was really aimed at, you know what I mean, China, Russia, and Iran, you know? But yet they got everybody thinking on the media, don't want to tell everybody what's really going on. Oh, that this was just a great big old, you know, we got this drug smuggling president who was making himself rich and leaving the people in poverty, right? Knowing good and well that they done had leader after leader that's been telling everybody, you know what I'm saying? They are trying to oppress us so they can come down here and take the oil to enrich it for themselves, right? This is what goes on in this world, right? All that garbage you see on TV, they ain't telling you the whole truth because they don't want you to know the whole truth, right? Let's go to scripture. All right, so let's close out with this so that you'll understand what this whole New World Order stuff is about, okay? We got one final kingdom, which we could very well be in now, right? That's going to produce the son of perdition, of the which, you know what I'm saying? This is going to be the beast kingdom. But anyway, Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 through 27, what do we see? Thus he saith, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverged from all kingdoms, and it shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down and break it in pieces. So this final kingdom has to go global, right? Shall tread it down and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns, so remember those 10 horns, out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. And another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverged from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings. So he's going to take over 3 of them. And he shall speak great words against the Most High. So we know this has become the son of perdition. And shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until the time and times and the dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and to destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him, right? So you need to be pledging your allegiance to the Most High Yah, our Heavenly Father's kingdom, who our King is, his only begotten Son. Some of y'all call him Yahusha, some of y'all call him Yahweh Shai, some of y'all call him Jesus. But anyway, let's go to our next scripture. Revelation chapter 17, verse 10 through 17, what do we see? And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen. So this is what the revelation that was given to John, the disciple, you know what I mean, the revelator. So he told him 5 kingdoms are already fallen from the time that he's telling him this. So what was those 5 kingdoms? Egypt, 1, Assyria, 2, Babylon, 3, the Medes and the Persians, 4, and the Greeks was 5. And 1 is. So during the time that John, the revelator, or John, the disciple, was with Christ, who was in control at that time? The Romans, okay? And the other is not yet come, okay? Because the Roman Empire, we know, has been dissolved. So now are we in the formation of this revised Roman Empire, or this European Union, right? But anyway, it says the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Because remember, this one person is going to come in and take over 3 regions. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. So this is what we just saw in Daniel chapter 7, which have received no kingdom as yet. but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So they are going to give their kingdoms over to the one world government or the new world order, right? These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings. So we know that's Yahweh, Yahusha, Jesus, right? And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. So again, you're either with him or you're against him, right? And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. So could that be this church? You know what I'm saying? That got people believing all these lies? Could that be the Roman Catholic Church? I don't know. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, okay? So we know that the beast is going to hate the whore. And if the whore is religion, right, that's not based off of what's in the Bible, this whore hates her. I mean, the beast hates this whore, right? And shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Now, that could just be the city, right? You know, is it Rome? We don't know. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast. So we know eventually this nation, all these nations are going to be confederate. We already know that. That's what the Bible tells us. Until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So we got a new world order coming, right? Simple as that. All right. So with that being said, right, we know eventually America can't stand up, you know what I'm saying, and do whatever America wants to do. Eventually something has to happen between China, Russia, and America, right? Eventually something's got to go down, right? Is the whore America? Could that be the great whore, right? But what we know is eventually something has got to happen because we got to get this one world government that gets kicked off, right? That's just what's going to happen. We already know that. This final kingdom has to take authority and take root. And when it does, it's going to put this mark out here that you're not going to be able to buy or sell, save you take this mark, right? So we already know that's coming. So that's why you got to be prepared. You start seeing chaos and all this type of stuff, right? This could happen in our days. It could be 50 years, 100 years. This depends on if the Most High, you know what I mean, tarries before he sends his only begotten son, right? So it is what it is. But with that, thank y'all for watching. You know what I'm saying? Stay prayed up, stay in prayer, stay in your word, right? Pray, ask the Father to fill you with the Holy Spirit. If you haven't ever done that, you pray and say, hey, I want to accept Christ as my Redeemer. As you know, I want to accept my salvation through him, and pray, Father, that you would fill me with the Holy Spirit and forgive me for my sins and my iniquities, right? That's what you need to do, all right? So once again, thank each and every one of y'all for watching. Till we meet again, you know what I'm saying? You all be blessed. K. Judah, take us on. Shalom.
Though I walk through the valley of death, shadows whisper, still in my breath, the ground feels cold, like it's a lie, each step a battle, just to survive. Though I walk alone, through the dark, through the storm, but I'm not afraid. No, I'm not afraid. No, I'm not afraid. A light inside, it's my barricade. The trees, they shiver, they bend and creak. The wind, it howls, the future bleak. Yet my heart beats loud, a steady drum. It tells the night I won't succumb. They can't break me, no they won't, no they won't. My soul's on fire, they don't know. Though I walk alone, through the dark, through the storm, but I'm not afraid. No, I'm not afraid. No, I'm not afraid. A light inside, it's my barricade. The skies might fall, but I'll rise up, I'll rise through it all.